How's everybody doing? We're going to have a discussion on some uh, different things, not just the DCEU. We're going to go into some other topics in addition to the DCEU. I hope everybody's doing well today. It's 11 o'clock in the day. I'm going to be out of here hopefully in a couple minutes' time. I want to read to you guys from Joel chapter 3. I particularly want to read from verses 10, and it can go for quite a distance, but bear with me, all right? So it says, "Let the heathen be awakened and come up from the valley of decision. For there I will sit to judge all the heathen round about. Put your sickle into the ground, for the harvest is ripe. Get down there, for the press is full, the vats overflow, for their wickedness is great." Multitudes, multitudes in the valley of decision. For the day of the Lord is near in the valley of decision. The sun and the moon shall be darkened, and the stars shall withhold their shining. The Lord shall also roar out of Zion, and utter his voice from Jerusalem, and the heavens and earth shall shake. But the Lord will be the hope of his people, and the strength of the children of Israel. So shall you know I am the Lord your God, that dwells in Zion, my holy mountain. Then shall Jerusalem be holy, and there shall be no strangers that pass through her anymore. I want to stop right there. The valley of decision. Choice. It always comes down to choice, folks. What do you choose? To choose to go the path of wickedness or to choose to go the path of goodness? It's up to you. It's a choice. And this scripture here is talking about how the consequences of your choice will come to you. So it's based on what you choose that there will be a consequence for it. In this particular scripture I just read, it's speaking from the perspective of God or goodness, and it's speaking from the perspective of those who are not advocates of that and those who are advocates of that. And in short, what it is saying is you have to choose. It's called the valley of decision. Now, grapes, when you squeeze them, the juice that comes out of them is red, hence wine. Here we're talking about lives being lost, or lives and souls. So when we say put them in the vat and squeeze the vat down, and it's the wicked and evil people we're looking at, and that's the judgment on them, it is based on their choice that they are actually getting the consequences to their actions. This is all this metaphor means. Similarly, those who pursue after good, there are consequences to that. So that's the simplicity of the scripture that I just read for you. It's a lot much more complex than that, and it's much more detailed than that, but I want to just keep it simple with you guys for now. So I always tell people it is the best thing to just pursue good. And yes, you may fall, you may stumble and fall, but in time you will join the Son and you will be as he is. All right, let's get into what we're going to talk about today. And everything that I just read is relevant to what we're about to see in this video. First of all, if you want to, there's a chat section right on the side of this video that's streaming. You can easily leave your comments in the chat section. Leave your comments in the chat section. I'm always happy to hear what you guys have to say. Let me get on with the rest of my day. All right. I know you guys are working and stuff when I do this video. Usually you're working and stuff. So let's just get into it. So the first thing I'm going to talk about here, and let me go to screen share really quickly. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to talk about here is I'm going to talk about a movie that has nothing to do with the DCEU. The movie is called Falling Down. Now, I don't know how many of you guys ever saw this 1993 movie, but I just happened to see it this morning. Woke up and I turned on the television. And this is a movie by Michael Douglas. And it's about a guy who worked in the Defense Department making missiles and arms. And he was fired from his job. And he was trying to get back to his family, to share some time with them. And we see it from his perspective particularly. And in his journey, we see also the hypocrisy and the fallacies of our world the discrimination and the discrepancies, the lies, the deceitfulness, etc. of our world as he journeys back to get to his family. And obviously he's not in his right mind, and obviously what his reality is we can see what the real reality is. But as we watch the story unfold of this man and his journey, we see a lot of the hypocrisies of our world, and we see how much the ugly of our world. Now, even though we see the ugly of our world, we also see the beauty of our world. All right. And we see the nuance, and we see that even sometimes what we consider white and black moments, that there's expediency sometimes not to lie, but sometimes to be more wise in how we approach people and deal with situations. So there's a lot of that going on in this movie. There's also something else subliminal going on in this movie. The first thing we see in this movie is that there's this idea that you know, along ethnic and racial lines, that an individual, if they have a certain ethnicity, there is almost a much more a greater degree of understanding towards their situation. Now, of course, it's how you humanize the individual, no matter how terrible they are. But I noticed that there is this narrative that if a white man, a white male, goes on a shooting spree and is doing some heinous crimes and is killing people, that he's considered mentally unstable. But somehow, some way, let's change that ethnicity of that person, and all of a sudden there isn't that empathy for them. I'm not saying sympathy now, empathy. That is to say that they don't realize that this person also is mentally unstable. Now, I'm not saying that most people who conduct heinous crimes and heinous acts are mentally unstable. That goes without saying, okay? There are a few who are very stable in mind, and they are trying to prove a point, and or they are trying to get a certain result. And we have those individuals who are just naturally evil. But for this gentleman here, he definitely was mentally unstable, and he had been so for a while. What's interesting to me is that seeing something from a mentally unstable person's perspective sometimes is more enlightening than if you were to see it from what we call a person who is sane. So I'm going many different places here with this discussion. I've noticed that mentally unstable people because they are a sort of less restricted, they're able to tap into the spirituality of an area. They're also able to see demographics much better because for two major reasons. One is that they're a reflection of that society. And the second thing is that they are able not to be occupied with the usual routines because they're not really in the system. They actually have come out of the system. And as such, they're able to observe the system in ways that other people have not observed the system. Usually these people also think somewhat differently. And the problem with people who generally are mentally unstable is that they have sort of succumbed to the system. A lot of them had a black and white sort of way of looking at life as well. And so it's interesting listening to this guy's story. And as he moves along, you see the hypocrisies of things, the inconsistencies of things. And I think a lot of people in the United States of America can understand this. You know, the American dream, which we will be discussing a number of times in this video. But the American dream is something that most people really bought into, and they believe that, you know, if you work hard and if you persist and, you know, if you follow all the rules and regulations, you'll make it, right? And a lot of that American dream is a myth for various people. In fact, right now in white America, the American dream seems like the American lie. But it's not that it's a lie, and neither is it a myth. It's just that we have people in society. And because we have people in society, people don't always do things in a black and white, straightforward way. And so what you find is that, yes, you can achieve whatever you want, but you have to be persistent. A lot of these other people say you have to have a passion for it, and you must want it more than anything else. And the sad thing about that passion that they talk about is they're also talking about you compromising yourself to attain that thing. So that is to say, bow to certain people, nod to certain people. If you don't do that, then you're going to be exposed. Then they're going to gather dirt on you, and they're going to malay you. And then afterwards, they'll try and character assassinate you. And then afterwards, if they can put you away, as destructive as they can destroy you, they will go about doing so. And I've seen that firsthand in institutions which supposedly were religious institutions. So I've seen it all. And human nature basically is that. And I can tell you that for a fact. And sometimes when you hear me curse and swear, it's because I just remember the hypocrisy of people who espouse to be clean and beautiful and bright. But when you look under the surface, it's just a sepulcher of dead men's bones. Okay. Anyway, this movie is a fantastic movie for you guys to see. And you get an idea of what kind of taste of movies I like. And so I just decided to recommend for you guys to go watch on DVD or Blu-ray or video release, Falling Down. It's a really great story. And interestingly, it is done by Schumacher. Schumacher, who did the Batman movies. He's the guy, Joel Schumacher, who actually did Falling Down. It's a fantastic movie. It's emotional. It's suspenseful. Everything about it's fine. And I just wish that people would approach comic book movies like how Falling Down is. Falling Down is not just about action. It's not just about grittiness. It's not just about the drama. It even has some comedy in it. It's about a deeper thing, a wider theme. And I always believe movies, I don't care how funny they are, should have these overarching themes that make the movie bigger than it is. See, the movie wasn't really about Michael Douglas's character. All right. It was really about us. It was a reflection of ourselves. Now, it was a negative reflection of ourselves. But yet, in spite of that negative reflection of ourselves, we also saw the positive in ourselves. And the movie is not a happy, fuzzy, light movie. Okay. Now, this is the kind of movie sometimes you need to see. You need to see. And it's weird, but Falling Down still has relevance to our time. And I said all of this, my observations about Falling Down and how people look at a white male in society who does heinous crimes and heinous acts. And there's empathy for that individual, and there's apologies for that individual. And then there's the labeling of that individual as crazy. You will not get that with a black minority. They are called villains. They're called, you'll see some negative things said about minorities. They're called rapists. The word rapist comes up a number of times with the racist. It's really weird. You hear about rapists because they don't want their woman to be raped. You hear about they're criminals. You hear that they're animals. You hear about that they're stupid, that their places are shitty. There's always this denigration of minorities. And we'll come back to that in a minute. All right, so getting on with what we are going to talk about, but I just wanted to refer you guys to this movie. It's a fantastic film to go see, to borrow and watch, and it's quite a journey, and it has there's a lot going on in the story besides the main protagonist. There's other things going on in the story. It's much more layered than, and Schumacher did an excellent job at this movie directing it, I gotta say. All right, and I don't like his Batman movies at all, but Schumacher really nailed it with Falling Down. He nailed it with Falling Down. I wish he had approached the Batman movies in that kind of attitude. He would have done very well. Okay, so James Gunn. So we're beginning now. I use Falling Down as a sort of backdrop and a segue to what we're going to talk about, which is James Gunn, as been fired by Disney for some comments he said way back in the day. And James Gunn is a hell of a director. And I think Walt Disney did him wrong. And I'm going to give you my slant on what happened. And again, the hypocrisy of things. And you will learn two things in life. You'll learn that being highly intelligent and highly skilled is not enough to make it in this life. You can't just be intelligent. You just can't be skilled. You also have to be with a certain degree of strength, emotional strength. You have to have that to make it in this world, because the kinds of people that will interact with you and interface with you are people who are gunning for you. No pun intended. They're gunning for you, and they will try to destroy you because of your skills and abilities and your intelligence. and they know they can't match you with intelligence, so they will use nasty, dirty, mean, evil mechanisms to tear you down. Okay, and this is what happened with James Gunn. I'm going to show you what happened with James Gunn. All right, so permit me to let you guys know, I think it broke in the news very recently. Young Turks also took it up, and I think it's now in the media a little bit. But I'm going to tell you what happened with James Gunn, and I'm telling you that's the same thing happened with Zack Snyder. I'm telling you that that's what happened with what's his name, and these nasty people in the background who are doing these things. Guess what? Guess what? They're really vile, and we'll show you what I'm talking about. So this is James Gunn right here. And of course, he's with a raccoon, and it's supposed to be funny. And he made a series of rape jokes and pedophilia jokes 9 years ago. And he said he's sort of and James Gunn has always been that kind of raunchy kind of, he makes all these out there jokes. Okay, that's where he came from. That's what he majored in. Anyway, and then they was wondering why Disney even hired him, but we realize why now. The brilliance of the guy. And it's interesting because this whole incident happened because of this guy. This is the guy who gathered dirt on James Gunn. He did a lot of homework and research to get him. And I believe he was hired by Walt Disney. That's what I truly believe, to break this information. The guy's name is Mike Cernovich, as you can see right here. And Mike Cernovich, let me tell you Mike Cernovich's views. You know what's interesting? Mike Cernovich expressed that he was outraged over the rapist statements and all these terrible things. And he put it up on Twitter, and he made a big scene about it, right? Look at the guy. Look at him good. Look at him good, because you're going to be interested about this. Listen to this. Mike Cernovich says, have you guys ever tried raping a girl without using force? Try it. It's basically impossible. Date rape does not exist. Let's say that again. Have you guys ever tried raping a girl without using force? Try it. It's basically impossible. Rape date does not exist. This is the kind of guy we're dealing with. All right. This is the guy who puts James Gunn on blast, talking about, oh, he did atrocious statements about rape, atrocious statements about pedophilia. This is the guy. He's saying date rape does not exist. So if you try to have sex in a forceful way with a girl, he's putting it in inverted commas, rape. He's saying date rape does not exist. This is the guy. He goes on to say, I want you to understand the kind of person we're dealing with. This is Mike Cernovich. This is the dude who said the alt-right hasn't killed anyone, but Black Lives Matter regularly slaughters the innocent. Know the real threat. Think, Dallas. He says also, today we have a moment of silence for Trayvon Martin's rape victims. Kidding. He got before he was able to rape anyone. This is the dude that is bringing dirt on James Gunn. This is the dude Disney listens to and fires. This is the guy that started the whole rumor on James Gunn. This individual. I want you to look at him good. He looks like a psychopath. Look at his eyes. Look at his face. And these are the people that we see around. You know, sometimes I see some of these people on the MCU. I see them and they're talking about niggas and black people as animals. I'm not saying all of the people in the MCU are like that, but I'm just showing you the kind of people you're dealing with. Why they're ravenous. Why they try to tear down Warner Brothers. Why they try to tear down the DCEU. This is the kind of person we're talking about here. This is a guy hired in the industry. This is what Mike Cernovich said. I want you to understand what I'm saying in the context of what I'm saying. Remember, I started off with Michael Douglas in the film. What's the name of the film? Let me see. Falling Down, right? And I was telling you about the hypocrisies of this world. Usually the guy who's pointing the fingers, he's more guilty than the guy who's pointing the fingers at. James Gunn apologized for what he said. This guy is not apologizing. He's still doing it today. This is the guy that pointed out James Gunn. Mike Cernovich, he said, rape via an alpha male is different from other forms of rape. We can't really understand this as our culture is too detached from instinct. This guy is dead serious about what he's saying. Let me tell you something. This guy, who obviously is an alt-right guy, right? Lowest of the low. This guy's a scumbag. He's a nasty guy. Okay. There's no if or buts about this, right? This guy's serious about rape. James Gunn was making jokes about rape and pedophilia. This guy's serious about it. This is the hypocrite that comes out there and tries to single out James Gunn and attack him because of some issue internally with Disney. I'm sure Disney hired this guy to say that. And I'm showing you how nasty these guys are and the business end of this thing. You're going to take a guy who's a proponent of rape to accuse another guy who's making a joke about rape and apologized for it? You serious? Dave, what's his name? Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle made a joke about Bill Cosby and raping other people. Nobody's gone down on Dave Chappelle, right? The hypocrisy in it. But this guy loses his job, James Gunn, for something 9 years ago. It never made sense to me. Why are you going all the way back 9 years? And then everybody's validating it because it's about politics. And our politics now have entered into the movie arena. The alt-right has been masking themselves under Disney. Disney, which is supposed to be a left-wing company, which sponsors left-wing stations. The alt-right infiltrated that. Then you got guys like this scumbag, Mike Cernovich, this scum of the earth, finding dirt on a guy and highlighting it 9 years ago because of some disagreement James Gunn has had with Disney. That's what happened. And for the cover, they decided to gather dirt. That's what Disney does. They gather dirt on you and they make you look dirty so you can't get hired by anyone else. You can't mess with Disney otherwise. Disney aligned themselves with Donald Trump for a minute, even though they're not really happy about him. I'm not saying Disney's a bad company because there's lots of good things in Disney and there's a lot of, I love Star Wars, The Last Jedi and stuff. Let me just make it abundantly clear. I'm not saying I hate Disney, but I'm just showing you the scumbags that Disney is associating themselves with and listening to. This guy's scum. This is what Mike Cernovich had to say. Today we have a moment of silence. Okay, you saw this one already. I'm going to show you guys some more because truth must come out. And I told you guys, I knew something. They did something to James Gunn. I don't know who I said that to. I don't know if I said it on here or not. Mike Cernovich about minorities not being a slut is the only proven way to avoid AIDS. If you love black women, slut shame them. So he's saying, you know, basically rape them, disrespect them, you know, humble them. So if you love black women, shame them. And his reasoning is the most sickest, twisted reasoning ever. It's sick. This guy is sick. He's mentally sick. That's why they say, again, the rumor. Now, I want to show you something. I want to show you guys something. Remember I told you about, again, falling down. Usually these guys, they are called mentally sick. They're not called evil. They're not called the scum of the earth. And you remember I said everything. You remember the scripture I said, everything comes down to choice from Joel 3? Everything comes down to choice. You can choose to go the path of evil and wickedness, or you can choose to go the path of good. But America doesn't look at this sicko, okay, and say, that's the vilest, evilest man I've ever seen. No, they would say that if it was black, they'd target him relentlessly and hate on him, right? But they would say, he's sick. He needs to go to a mental hospital. Oh, he's just one of those crazy white people. Well, there seem to be a lot of them running around lately. What I mean by that is, that is not a statement you make that shows that you're good. Then the guy, you think this guy is finished? And he's serious about everything he's saying. Do a Google image search for lions mating. That's basically rape, and it's also the natural form of sex. This is in 2013. This motherfucker said that. So let me make it abundantly clear. This sicko, this is the guy that shouldn't have work. This is the guy they need to kick the hell out of wherever his business place is. He need to go either in a mental hospital or into jail. This is a sicko. James Gunn is not like that, obviously. I'll contrast James Gunn. Sorry, not James Wan. So this lady Selma Blair has come to the defense of James Wan. And Selma Blair was a victim of sexual harassment who was encouraged by James Gunn to step forward in her claims against director James Toback as the Me Too movement gained steam. And she thanked James Gunn for decency and his evolution as a man. So James Gunn does the opposite of this sicko who's proponent for rape. He's saying the people who have been harassed or raped or victims, he was saying, look, man, you get the courage to get up and say what you got to say. And this is Selma Blair right here. For those of you who don't know, Selma Blair is an actor. She's been in various movies. And she said to James Gunn, I thank you for your talent, your decency, and your evolution as a man. You propped me up when I was in a scary place and guided me towards the decent and right thing to do. You have shown strength of character more than most anyone I know. You understood. So she is actually saying that James Gunn is actually a guy that's a decent dude, you know, and James Gunn has evolved from where he used to be. But the guy who's accusing him, that sicko is still a scumbag, a racist, sexist, mentally sick psychopath. Okay? That's what you're dealing with. And this guy is still talking on social media. All right? And this is a guy who aligns himself with the alt-right. He's a guy that's talking about Trayvon Martin's death was justifiable because he was going to rape someone else. The guy hung up on rape is this sicko. He wants to have the rights to rape other people, but no one must rape him. Very much what racism is about. Racism says, oh, America was founded by the white man who raped the Native Americans. All right? He's able to rape them out of their land and rape this and rape that with his gun. But no one must rape him. I mustn't rape his woman. It's the same fundamental fascist, racist ideology we're seeing in America today. And there are a lot of racists in America. And they're building up their army to defend Donald Trump when he gets victimized. And then Russia hopefully will come to their aid. And we got some Russians in America already. We know that, training in America, and we have Russian soldiers in America, right? For those of you who don't know, yeah, they got their forces in America already. All right. So if the CIA and FBI don't hurry up and do their job and get stuff done and get this guy kicked out of office, you guys are going to be the USSR very soon. Sorry to tell you guys the bad news, but that's the way how the end times have to be anyway. Because they have a plan and they're trying to stall you motherfuckers. That's what they're trying to do. And take away your freedoms. And Donald Trump has in no uncertain terms expressed that. He's already said, fuck y'all. We got our support group down here in America. And it's never going to come back to what the America you know. That's what's up. All right. So I said all of that just to say to you guys, straight tone and straight language, that this is the kind of nasty politics going on in movies right now. And once upon a time, we could have been ignorant of these things, walk into a movie and enjoy it. So that's what happened to Justice League. It's these kinds of sicko, wacko, psychotic, nasty people. It's people like this guy who were behind the engine to destroy Justice League. Okay? It's sickos like this guy, and they're in the industry. They write stuff, and they know they're on their agenda, and they know they're lying. And they're more guilty of that stuff than what they're writing. And that's the thing that gets me. Now they're in harmony saying, oh, Aquaman's the best movie ever and stuff, because they want to push an agenda. These fuckers want to push an agenda. It's not about honesty. I'm just saying. So I'm just letting you guys know there's politics going on. Don't get yourself swayed by the politics. All right? Don't get yourself swayed by, and this guy's an alt-right guy. All right? Don't get yourself swayed by the politics, okay? Let me keep it moving. So, like I said, the influence of Watchmen on the DCEU. And there's a couple things I want to say. The first thing I want to say is that Easter eggs, when Zack Snyder does an Easter egg, he's not just doing an Easter egg without any meaning behind it. You see, a lot of Suicide Squad had an Easter egg shout out to the comedian and Watchmen, right? He had a little shout out to that. But that was an empty shout out. It was just an Easter egg. Just to say maybe, you know, the people in the universe are aware of Watchmen. That's cool. But Easter eggs must have significance. They must have meaning. When Zack Snyder does an Easter egg, you literally can go into the comic book, read up on that Easter egg, or go to another movie, read up on the Easter egg, and get the context from which Zack Snyder is explaining even further what he was saying in the movie you were watching. So Zack Snyder doesn't just arbitrarily give you an Easter egg. There's a significance to an Easter egg that he gives you. And that's the difference between what Zack Snyder does and what these other directors do. Zack Snyder's on another level with Easter eggs. You understand? And that's something that people don't understand. Easter eggs have significance. It's not just a shout out and yeah, I shout out to this movie and I shout out to the, like Deadpool. Oh, meta here, meta there. Ah! No, he's not flippant. He's not superficial. And what I am talking about right now, the hypocrisy and the manipulation of things, Zack Snyder comes and actually shows that in his movies. All right, let me take a break for a minute before I get into it so you guys will understand just how deeply, you have to understand why I appreciate his movies, okay? Why I appreciate the DCEU and what he has done in the DCEU. I want you guys to understand where I'm coming from because I'm pretty sure no other director does this kind of stuff, okay? None, at least in the in comic book movies. They never had that foresight. They never had that vision because Zack Snyder's a different kind of guy. Zack Snyder's a different kind of guy. He likes to tell you a story multiple ways. He can tell you through verbal ways. He can tell you through showing you. He can tell you it through sound. You have to pay attention to all of these things. And Zack is very, very particular how he crafts a scene. Very, very particular. That's why they say he's a very detailed director. He's a very particular director when it comes to directing scenes. And I don't know. All right, I got to take a little break, guys. I'll come back in a minute. Let me take a little break. Let me see what you guys are saying in the comment section. DJ Lawson Farm said, morning, sir. Shout out to you, DJ. Morning to you, my brother. I'm just going to, let me take this off here, the screen. Let me come out of this for a minute. You guys going to see my face a little bit or maybe not. Oh, there you go. All right. So you guys can see me face to face for a minute before I go into the DCEU stuff. And then I have some other things to say. But shout out to you guys, man. Shout out to you, DJ Lost and Found. Shout out to you, Dave Eaton. Shout out to you. It's good to see you guys, man. Dave Ethan says people who are using medieval, vile, oh, I get you. Evil, vile tactics to put other people down are just childish at best. Yeah, absolutely. You're right. They are lost children. That is correct. Dave Ethan says, hey, that's haters for you. They're all around 24/7. Yeah, my dude, you're absolutely correct again. You're absolutely correct again. But what I'm trying to point out to you, and again, I want you guys to go watch that movie. What's the movie Falling Down? Okay, that's a really fantastic film. You'll see what I'm talking about. All right. Dave Ethan says, never swayed, never will. Nice, Dave Ethan. Remember, you got to process things. It's about critical thinking all the way through. Now, I got to step away for a second. I'm coming right back, guys. I'm coming right back. I just need to go use the toilet pee. Okay, I'm coming right back. This is an unofficial video anyway. Oh, I just looked and I just saw one person dislike this video. One person actually disliked this video, guys. I want you guys to just like the video, support the video, and don't forget to share the video. I know Dave Ethan's always going to put up this video, and I I still believe in the DCEU. And dude, keep believing in the DCEU, my friend. Keep on believing in it. I'm still pushing for the Snyder Cut. And you know, I'm always there in spirit with you guys. Don't get it twisted. Just because I said I'm not interested in the trailers for certain films doesn't mean that at some point in time, you know, I'll try to lend my support where I can from a distance. All right. But I wanted to talk about what Zack Snyder was doing. Let me just go use the bathroom for a second, and I'll be right back, guys. A bathroom break in the middle of a video. Who's ever heard of that, right? Also, I have to. I gotta be careful because I have to. I use the toilet before I go. Anyway, yes. So let me get back to what I was talking to you guys about. It's nice to see all of you guys. DJ Lawson, Found Dave, Ethan, and what's the other gentleman? Oh, nobody else right now. Okay, good. Okay, so let me get to a little bit more about what we were talking about. And I'm glad. You see, when you get a reaction of somebody in the negative, it means you're impacting people. You know what I'm saying? You're impacting people, and hopefully that works out for the better in the end, because we have to point out the hypocrisies of people, and we have to let them know we see what they're doing. And that's why I'm pointing this out right now. You see, they're gunning for James Gunn. No pun intended. They're gunning for James Gunn, but James Gunn is a decent guy, and I just want you guys to know, clear the air on it. He's a decent guy. He's a decent director, and he does not deserve what he's getting. Okay, all right. And that's why people like me, I need to point it out. We need to stand up and point out these lies and these hypocrisies going on out here by haters, straight up haters, who are actually more guilty than the people they're trying to point out. You know, remember what they did with Hillary Clinton? Now they were trying to point out how wicked and evil she is. Well, look what we got now. Look what we got now. Look what we got now. I'm just saying. And I want you guys to remember this. All right, let's keep it moving. All right, I'm going back to what we were doing. So let me get here. Okay, so Watchmen. All right, Watchmen had a lot of impact and influence on the DCEU. Zack Snyder did Watchmen, and in his movies, he actually gave some callbacks or some homages to Watchmen, but they always were in a context. So in Watchmen, for example, here, we had the anti-mask movement, okay? And this anti-mask movement happened because at the present point in time, the police department had sort of given up and they had retired, and they said, oh, let the mask do the job. We're just going to be, you know, we don't need to be necessary anymore. So the police actually, in response to all of the vigilantes moving around and taking care of crime, they just kind of quit. And they were like, man, you know, these guys, they are law unto themselves. These masks, they're getting out of hand, because the Watchmen were getting out of hand. And so now people started protesting that, because they did not like that the superheroes or the vigilantes were actually putting the law in their hands, and they were mistreating some people. Some of the masked people were actually mistreating people. And we see it in the scene where the comedian, he starts to tear gas people down. He starts to shoot up people. He starts to punch people. And the comedian really, he's a callous son of a bitch, man. And he really made it bad for the masked guys, even though I got to say Night Owl also, when he lost it and he started beating up a normal citizen, was terrible as well, when he was with Rorschach. So people were saying, man, do we need to ban these masked people or these superheroes or these vigilantes, right? And they were actually passing a law in Congress to ban them, okay? And if you look at this, this is anti-vigilante, anti-hero sentiment. And I don't mean anti-hero in the way of anti-hero, but Let me just zoom out a little bit. There you go. That's nice and clean right there. So I want you guys to have a look at it. See, cops say something problem, right? So I think cops say that's their problem or something like that. And the cops basically retire. So if you look here, you will see a superhero. You see as an H on his chest, you have this, and they're burning the superhero. All right, they're burning the superhero and hanging the superhero. And you see all the sentiments here: ban all masks, you know, badges, not masks, no more vigilantes, right? No vigilantes. Okay, I guess this is no vigilantes again. And there are different sentiments here. Something mask streets. Okay, so if you look here, the vigilantes or the mask or the heroes, they had actually started to sort of take advantage of the people, and they kind of became a law unto themselves, and the people were striking back. They were like, hell with you, and they were burning cars, and they were making a scene, and they were protesting it, right? Now, interestingly enough, that sort of sentiment carried into Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice with Superman. And Superman, they were doing the same things to Superman. They said Superman equals illegal alien. This was saying super death. This is saying Superman will enslave us. And so the people were fighting back. Now, the difference between this scene and, say, the scene from Watchmen is the Watchmen in Watchmen were literally, you know, abusing the people. They were abusing the people to some degree. And also they had gotten a bad rep because, as you know, the historical, the initial Minutemen are seen as heroes by the people. But then after the successful war against Japan, we saw that some of the Watchmen were lesbians, some of the Watchmen were homos, some of the Watchmen, you know, went insane. Some of the Watchmen were just murdered, period. Some of the Watchmen were, you know, were responsible for the assassination of presidents. So the Watchmen, or the Minutemen, they kind of reorganized. And the original Minuteman in that whole thing was the comedian. The comedian had been from the original Minutemen, and he came across. Then there was the whole new lineup of Minutemen, right? But the important thing to understand was that the Minutemen had a history of being, they were once seen as this golden era of heroes that helped to save people from bandits and stuff and all of that. But now that they kind of become humanized, and they got corruptible, and people saw them as people and didn't like that they were in charge, you know, and used for them. And once one of the Minutemen was used as a weapon of mass destruction, right? So in that context, the people were really fighting back at the Minutemen. They had succeeded at conquering the world and had made America the superpower that it was. But yet at the same time, the people thought that they were having this sort of policed rule, this police state, this big brother rule, where these superheroes with powers were, or no powers, just super strong. They were basically taking advantage of the people. And we can see that with the comedian. Comedian's been consistent throughout almost the entire movie of being a guy that did whatever the hell he wanted to do. And you could tell he was dissatisfied. To me, the comedian represents white privilege, white male privilege in the world. To me, he represents that. And you see how he treated the Vietnam woman who had the child for him, or the Korean woman, I don't know which one it was, and he eventually killed her. And he doesn't take responsibility for doing that. Instead, he turns around and blames Dr. Manhattan for not stopping it. And I find that very interesting. The comedian has lived a bitter life, but yet he, ironically, which is the comedy in it, thinks that this bitterness is something to laugh about. So he laughs about his pain. So that's the comedian. And what is interesting about that is that the comedian basically represents, sadly, the downside to what our heroes are. In other words, you look at the statues right now, the Confederate statues that the South embrace. And ironically, well, not all the South, but you know what I mean, the white South. Ironically, Those statues are the epitome of the comedian. It's a celebration of the irony, the bitterness, but the conquering bitterness that people who have power want to hold on to, that they actually don't feel happy. And, you know, if you think about it, there's a lot of depression these days, right? People have probably more things than they ever had in recent history. People have access to phones, television, the internet. They have access to money, jobs. You know, they're very comfortable living. Most of us are very comfortable living. We have the best clothes. We have the best shoes. Even if we're poor, our standard of living is much higher than somebody 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. Okay. Our houses are nicer, cooler, heating, etc. And yet we are actually more depressed. Why? Because we have conquered so much. When you've conquered things and you just live to conquer, when there's nothing left to conquer, you feel meaningless. Life is meaningless. And that's what happened with the comedian. He only lived his life to conquer. And as such, his bitterness was in the fact that, yes, he was good at executing things, but this quality of life, his standard of life, the simplicity of life. And this is a thing about Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. And I'll get to that in a minute. But first, the comedian is like this. He's like the, you know, our modern day stars. You know, they're separated from us in a way. You know, they're above us. They're larger than life, right? He represents that, but he represents a particular star. He represents the star that's a conquering star. Goes out there and conquers and conquers and conquers and conquers. And you know, if you ever watch the white people, they like to conquer things. And they say, I want to master my fear. And they conquer and conquer and conquer. Not all white people, but I'm just saying. And I'm not disrespecting white people, but I am saying a generic thing. There's a sweeping statement. Not all white people are like that, okay? I know that. But conquer, 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 conquer. What happens when you can't conquer? Alexander the Great was the theme of both Watchmen and Batman v Superman. You guys know that, right? I don't know if you guys know your history very well. Ozymandias, he admired Alexander the Great. And Lex Luthor was named after Alexander the Great. And Alexander the Great comes up over and over as a theme in Batman v Superman when you see the relic of the Triumph, which is the sword that cut the Gordian knot. It's considered Alexander's sword that cut the Gordian knot. Okay, and you know, the statues of Alexander the Great and all of that inside of the museum and stuff, right? So now understand the symbolism and understand how the twist happens here, because Zack Snyder takes it and twists it a bit. So first of all, you have to understand exploitation of power. When people get too powerful, what happens in Batman v Superman? Total power leads to total corruption, right? They say absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? So the Watchmen, they started getting corruptible, right? Or people stopped being so naive. It's one of the two. I don't know which one it was. But at the end of the day, this was the sentiment. This was the pushback on them. And of course, the comedian started shooting people. And there was one guy who was an innocent bystander. And the guy was like, no, 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 comedian, no, comedian, no, 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 no. And the guy was like, you son. And the comedian said, you son of a bitch. And he shoots him with the tear gas, right? He tear gases. And the comedian is very bitter. But here's the point. The point is that the reaction of the people to the comedian and to the Watchmen is justifiable, right? It's justifiable. Okay, we have Nixon, he's out of office, new Congress and everything. And the comedian is lamenting the fact that, you know, Nixon is out of office, you know, and that he can't do what he wanted to do, right? And it's interesting when they talk about no masks. You know, no mask is in a way, again, Zack Snyder speaking about the Ku Klux Klan. And again, I don't want to vilify white people. They're not the only people who have exploited things in the United States of America, but I have to point this out. That that the Ku Klux Klan has done a lot of damage, and they're still an organization to this day. The Black Panthers have been removed, right? The people were defending their own people. I'm not saying they didn't kill people, but they're gone. They're in prison. But here we have, again, this double standard where, you know, either white people are crazy or we can empathize with them. What the hell is the Ku Klux Klan doing around today? What the hell is that organization doing around today? How can you remove the Black Panthers, but you got the Ku Klux Klan that's allowed to be a entity, and they have rights and freedoms to express themselves. So in Watchmen, the masks are outlawed from, they're finally banned, okay? And we see the worst of the mask being the comedian. The comedian doesn't care about people, all right? He's very, very bitter. He's very, very hateful. And he takes joy in killing people, all right? Once upon a time, he took joy in apprehending criminals. Early on with the Minutemen, not anymore. But the interesting thing about the comedian is, and the Ku Klux Klan by extension, is that people resent the Ku Klux Klan to this day. People don't want to hear about it. And there are, again, I'm going to sound kind of controversial. It sounds like I'm sort of disagreeing with myself, but there are actually aspects of the Ku Klux Klan that are actually good, admirable, and actually, in a way, in a strange way, what they aspire to do as the Ku Klux Klan, strange as it may sound, is something that is admirable as well. And I'm not talking about preservation of the Aryan race and all of that. No, they are actually pushing back against the establishment. Weird as it sounds, as strange, and even Adolf Hitler was trying to do that as well. As weird and strange as it sounds, the Ku Klux Klan actually the initial idea that they had, okay, the idea that kind of formed, made them come together and form to say so-called survival, and then it just got really wacky, was we didn't want the establishment and the established religions to actually become Big Brother and destroy all of us. So the Klan was actually a protective mechanism, but then it suddenly became something else, okay? And it is now one of the most vile things you can ever think about. But the Ku Klux Klan, initially, that's why it's called Klan and Ku Klux, is because it was actually to protect. It was really supposed to be a protective Klan. Clearly, they overstepped their boundaries and started to kill out Black people and hang people. And so this is the pushback to it. So in this movie here, in Watchmen, you're seeing a pushback, and this is literally the behavior that you saw for with the Klan and the slaves, where they hung slaves, and they hung they hung Black people because they were not considered people, and they were thinking that they would again, they needed to protect their race and guard their race from the Black man, right? So it was an extremely oversensitized, stupid way to utilize the Klan. The Klan actually's purpose was to protect people, was to actually be a watchman. Yeah, it was supposed to be a watchman against our unfairness and exploitation of power. That was really what the Ku Klux Klan was supposed to be about. Isn't that crazy? But then now unexpected elements rose up. Now Black people are people. They can vote and stuff. Establishment will use them against us and blah, 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 blah. And the Klan suddenly became something that it was not meant to be. Adolf Hitler. It wasn't just about Jews that Adolf Hitler's regime was. It was also against Catholicism, Roman Catholicism. Martin Luther had begun the campaign against Catholicism, and the dominant reign of, again, one world religion dominating the world, and then having another dark age. So actually, Adolf Hitler was going up against what we call now religious classism. So that's why you will hear a lot in the Republican Party, for instance, about, no, let the states do their thing. You can't have everything centralized, because they're afraid that you have one power, one place suddenly dominating everything. And then all of a sudden, you know, we have this world order where it's just corporations running everything in the shadows. And you have no more rights and freedoms. You kind of fall into certain categories. And you've even seen some of these Republican people doing survival tactics and going up into the hills and living in the mountains and forgetting about electricity and stuff. They literally freak out because of that. So you have to understand that's where all this stuff came from. You know, And I say this because I want people to understand other people. When you're talking to someone who is, say, a very extreme right winger, that's where they're coming from. That's why they want their arms. That's why they want their guns. That's the beginning precept. That's what they say America was founded on, secession, that they broke from the British Empire. And they say, God damn it, nobody's going to take away my freedom. So that's what they're talking about. But they're not talking about it in the context of black people, in the context of the Native Americans, in the context of immigrants to our country. God damn them. We're going to protect ourselves. We're going to protect all white people. We are the people that came up with this idea, and we didn't intend to include it with anybody. When they talk about the right to bear arms, they're not talking about the right to bear arms by everybody in America. No, they're talking about white people. They have the right to bear arms. When they talk about all men created equal, they're not talking about all men created equal. They're talking about white people. No disrespect. I mean, if you are a white person listening to this right now, don't feel a how about it, because I'm not talking about you, okay? But you have to understand the context from which they were coming from. All right, no disrespect to nobody. You know what I'm saying? Please don't take this as an insult or anything. But this is where they're coming from. And again, I understand where they're coming from. I don't agree with it at all. But I can understand where they were coming from. They were talking about, you know, we consider ourselves people. We don't consider them people to this day. All right. And that's the same way Adolf Hitler felt about it. And not only did he feel that way about it, he acted on it. He genuinely felt that way. He wasn't mad. OK, there's literally that sentiment out there. In fact, a lot of times when white people move out of black neighborhoods, or white people or black people move into a neighborhood, white people move out, it's because that's how they feel. They feel like, no, you don't understand. You're not included in this. And they literally mean that. Like, it's not really a hate thing, but it's like no, you have to understand, I wasn't talking about you, pretty much, right? It's that kind of expression. And it literally is terrible. It's dehumanizing to other people. Striving to want that American dream, striving to want to be treated like a human being. You know, it was funny. You know, I'm talking about these things because this is what these movies allow me to talk about. I love to talk about these things because I feel like this is honesty. We're being honest here. Let me just say this, though, because it's only fair to say it. There's a lot of also overcompensation. What I mean by that is that, to be fair again, to cut it, I'm seeing now that there's a black surge of people pushing for black things. But then again, it's not necessarily about quality anymore. It's just once it's black, support it. And I'm like, no, no. Okay. Or once it's a minority, support it. No. And then on top of that, you get this kind of pushback by people who are saying now, okay, so the white people are bad and they're devils and they're terrible people. And then they start to really bash white people who they're supportive of you. And it's like all of a sudden there's like this blood, like this blood rage. And now we're just attacking every single white person we see. That's crazy, man. That's crazy. That's the same bullshit like what the Ku Klux Klan was doing. They had a good premise, and then they took it and they went to extreme with it. You cannot do that also. And similarly with women and men, you can't, okay, so you have a great premise. Don't take it to the extreme. Don't victimize people. Don't target people because an atrocity was done. You know, and that's the kind of thing. You need to target the right people. See, like this dude, what's his name? I could call this guy a scum of the earth because that's what he is. This guy, okay, because his actions say that. But not everybody's like that, okay? Not every white person's like that. Not every black person's like that. Not every person of every ethnicity is like that. And that's the problem. People take a broad paintbrush and say, oh, all the supporters of Trump are nasty people. Or if you supported Hillary Clinton, you're a nasty person. And, you know, and that part, you know, and take things that are not partisan and make them partisan. That's the bullshit that's going on right now. And these people are trying to divide and stall you guys So you will be a separated America, a weakened America, so they can destroy you, because they're looking to take your ass down. All right. And the people behind this are not Americans. They're Russians. All right. And they're succeeding at doing that until you say fuck that and you stick together. You'll have to get rid of your president, though, because under him, he's actually taking away all your freedoms, and he's also taking away all of the laws and legislations that are protective, allow you to protect your country, and they're doing it on a daily basis. They're unwinding these laws, and they're also unwinding your defense, your CIA, your FBI. All of your intelligence services are being compromised as we speak. And Donald Trump did that from day one. He let you guys know he's going to fuck you guys over. He gave sensitive intelligence information to Russians. That should have told you something. He's a traitor to your country. He does not care about you. He will say anything to stall you, but he does not care about your country. Okay? He is by choice. It is not because Vladimir Putin has something on him. He is by choice choosing to do this, to destroy your country. All right? And his business cohorts are with him on it, because they want a corporate America. They want a corporate world, and they have their corporate business. Some of them have corporate businesses in Russia, and they want a totalitarian rule so they can implement some other things which will involve mass genocide. They are trying to take you down. They don't give a fuck about you. They're not your friends. Donald Trump has never been poor in his life. He does not know what it is to be poor. He does not give a fuck about you. He will say whatever he wants to say. He will say things to make you feel that he cares about you, but he does not care about you at all. Zip, nil, niche. He cares about his business buddies and about business and raping you and the country. I'm just letting you know. I said it again. I'm being honest. Doesn't care about you. Doesn't care about Republicans. He does not care about Democrats. He cares about the almighty dollar. And he's going to rape you. And he's going to make sure he has an army that can overthrow the United States of America so he can stay in power and reap all the benefits under Putin. So you might as well understand this guy is a Sith Lord, and he's coming for you. All right? I said what I had to say. I'm not going to say it again. So here, Watchmen 2009, therefore, expresses the sentiment of the people and their distrust for heroes. And we see that same thing in a portion of the people. Not all the people are like this. Unlike in Watchmen, where all the people are like that. And that's why there's a false analogy that these people, these critics and so on, use, saying the whole entire world. And some of the people are like that. And people started to light Superman afire, pretty much like how they light this superhero here afire. And they got him on a noose as well. And this guy's wearing a hoodie. And they're all there doing their thing, okay? Not all the world is like that. And the other difference, and that's why I said it's with a twist, is that whereas this world deserves to be behaving that way, here, this world does not deserve to be behaving that way, because Superman is being manipulated by Lex Luthor. The image of him is being manipulated by Lex Luthor, who is pushing out a whole set of lies about Superman and setting him up to make some of the world feel this way. Of course, the world here is conflicted on Superman. And so Zack Snyder now is able to juxtapose the Superman, Batman v Superman, with the Minutemen in Watchmen. You can actually superimpose and see the difference in approach. Whereas, Watchmen was focused on the comedian. So comedian was one of the main protagonists of Watchmen, right? We were investigating the murder, the death of the comedian. So the comedian is one of the major storylines in Watchmen. And if you follow the comedian, he is bitter. He is hateful. He considers everything a joke. I want you to think about what I'm saying now, because we have a lot of Basically, the comedian represents what we're seeing in the world today. There's a lot of jokes going on in the world today, huh? And we even see it in our entertainment, right? We see in the Marvel movies and stuff, we see a lot of jokes. And that is a tribute to the comedian. You understand? We're laughing at our pain. But does it help us? Does it carry us through? No. What happened to the comedian in the end? He dies bitter, sad, and murdered. He said, "Father, forgive me." The very words that Jack said in the building before it came down in Metropolis. Right? The comedian did so many heinous acts. And I see it in the industry, in the art industry. You see so many nasty acts being carried out. Smear campaigns, character assassination. And so similarly here, we see it with the comedian. But the main character here, which is being hung here, is Superman in Batman v Superman. And he has ideals. He's really being persecuted for good ideals. He really carries through good ideals. He doesn't kill people. He saves people. The irony, right? Zack Snyder's known for irony. And here, the world has been manipulated by Lex Luthor through the media, some of the media at least the media is having an argument about him, about Superman and his abuse of power. Whereas here there was true abuse of power, Superman's not trying to abuse his power here. And so it's beautiful because, like I said before, it's a callback to the Watchmen in terms of how we react to the perception of someone abusing power. You see? That's the beauty. That's the symmetry. And that's the callback. That's the homage to Watchmen. Right? And I find that a beautiful thing to describe and to articulate to you guys right now, because once again, it's not empty Easter eggs. These Easter eggs mean something if you were to sit back and actually examine them and reflect on them. And in one visual image, Zach could say so much more than if he were to try and verbalize all of that. So I wanted to take my time and break that down to you guys, how this particular imagery here, it calls back to Watchmen, some of the sentiments of the people of the world. Now, note, not all the people of the world had this sentiment towards Superman. But again, it's because it appeared that he did a couple things and then he just left. And maybe he colluded. And it appears that everywhere Superman goes, there's death following him. So they call him Super Death and so on and so on and so on. This one, again, is what we call an inverse symmetry. So it is an Easter egg, but it is the inverse symmetry. So whereas in Watchmen, when we see the flag here, and you can see the flag is the same place on this building. All right. When we see the flag here, there's an irony to it within the movie. The irony is that this flag is saying USA welcomes the Vietnam veterans as of 51 states. So this is the flag saying as of 51 states. But yet on that is marked up in graffiti, who watches the Watchmen? All right. And ironically, that statement is fitting for the moment, because what is Mr. Comedian doing? And Night Owl is trying to stop him. You see, he's pushed his hand to try and stop him. He is actually tear gassing a guy who's saying, "Comedian, no, 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 no." The guy's telling him not to tear gas him, and he still tear gasses him. The comedian also represents a militarization of our police force. A lot of people who are in the police now versus a couple years back come from a military background and have actually seen action and combat. And the comedian, and this is a 2009 movie, by the way, in which the U.S. was fighting a war in Afghanistan under Barack Obama. And actually, they have a shout out to that. I think it was Rorschach when he's about to get arrested by police, but well, he's going back to Moloch's place, and he doesn't realize he's set up. He steps on the newspaper, and when he steps off the newspaper, you see something about Afghanistan, the forces of Afghanistan fighting the war there. But nonetheless, the military guy is here, the comedian. He comes from various wars. The last time we saw him in the movie, he was in the Vietnam or the Korean War. I can't remember which one. I think it was one of them that the U.S. lost. And here he is on home soil, and he's saying, man, God damn it, it's great to be back on home soil, right? And he's now as a law enforcement person. He's a vigilante, but he's doing law enforcement. And here you see him tear gas, literally tear gas a protester. Now, why that is something that is very interesting is because when we have militarized people in our police force, sometimes they can't tell the difference between a citizen and how to interact and engage a citizen and a hostile on a battlefield. And that's kind of sad. Now, I know some people who knew how to deal with people and determine if they're hostiles or not. William Ruffin has seen his bit of combat, and shout out to you, William Ruffin, and a lot of respect for you for doing service to your country. But at the same time, because these people are so militarized, the first thing they look to do is kill you now, right? And if you've ever watched Young Turks, you would realize the police, they shoot first, ask questions later, right? If you watched the movie, I go back to this movie constantly, Falling Down. It's interesting that the police here, he gives this guy ample chance to surrender. He doesn't shoot first, okay? It's only when the guy goes for his weapon, which ironically is a toy gun, and he shoots the guy and kills him, that he fires. Now it's ironic because we've seen a 12-year-old, we've seen a number of minority children of late get killed because they were holding a toy gun, okay? And it's just one of those ironies of the situation that there's this brainwashing that black people somehow are dangerous, or there's the brainwashing that, they're nobody, that black lives do not matter. And, we can kill them because they kill themselves out and they're a plague. And, black people are generally by nature criminals and bad and evil people, right? They're inherently that way, right? Everything's wrong about them. When you think of a black person, it immediately cheapens everything. You think of a white person, oh yeah, that's somebody you should take care to be careful around them. But the black people, no. Oh, they're just black people, right? I'm just saying, you guys got to think about what I'm saying now. Process it inside of your head and your skull, because I want you to be able to understand even black people think that way about themselves. And that's sad. That's why Black Lives matters, because we don't say Chinese lives matter. You know why? Because by and large, people really value the Chinese. China is still seen as a powerhouse in the world. Is Africa seen as a powerhouse? Hell no. Okay, then. That should end the story, right? India is seen as a powerhouse. Pakistan is seen as a powerhouse. Shit, Taiwan is seen as a powerhouse. Korea is seen as a powerhouse. Fuck no for Africa. That's why I said Black Lives Matter. If you see somebody come from Africa, an African person, a Nigerian, do you know how intelligent those people are? A lot of them are doctors, engineers, lawyers. I met a guy from Somalia. The man was rich and everything. He was a lawyer, everything. Now he's a janitor in the United States of America, and he's doing nursing. Man, this dude was somebody. And he had to humble himself, come to America to be a refugee and build it all over again. Such a humble guy, but an impressive dude. Dude had a house, he had a spread, and now he was just in an apartment with me. Do you know how humiliating that is? And people just don't get it. People don't get it because you come from another country. They think you got substandard or something. Immigrants. Shit, I got it better than most people in America right now. I got it real good. You know what I'm saying? No disrespect to nobody, but I have it real nice. And my point being this, you have to be able to open your mind to a wider look at things. And when you've traveled the world, you begin to respect people and realize how much in common we have. You understand what I'm saying? Anywho, moving on, back to what I was saying. Yeah, so the comedian. So the irony of the situation is literally this dude has no oversight. He's not accountable to anyone, right? This was the Watchmen thing. Now, when we go to Man of Steel, it's very interesting. Whereas the Watchman was drunken with power, especially the comedian, he was drunken with power and he was just using it recklessly because he could. And he was coming from a military background. Superman was the opposite of that. And that's what I love about Zack Snyder. He's literally, that's why I said the irony in it. And that's what Zack was talking about. The irony is that he's doing the opposite of what you saw in Watchmen. You see? And that's what I love about Zack Snyder. He did the absolute opposite. Even though he's still bringing back the Watchmen reference, he's saying, okay, that was Watchmen. Now watch what Superman's doing, right? So the flag is no longer nobody's spray painting who watches the Watchmen or who watches superheroes or who watches or leaders on that flag. It is a pure flag. All right. The other thing is the flag is seen. Superman represents the flag. He's representing the values of the United States of America. He literally has the white, blue, and red on him. And what's very interesting about this is his adversary is now coming to him. General Zod is now this guy. So this guy was just a normal citizen who did not need to be tear gassed, right? He's a normal citizen, right? And this is the guy who's the threat now. And he's talking about, you know what? We have to protect people from themselves, right? Superman is actually going to do the right thing, okay? He's doing what you're supposed to do. Protect the people from the Kryptonians. So that's the opposite, right? He's doing the opposite. And that's the pureness of values. And Superman represented that. And so it's the iconography is not just symbolism. And this is what I want people to understand. Easter eggs are not just Easter eggs for Easter egg's sake. An Easter egg is supposed to tell you more about the situation you're looking at. A good director gives an Easter egg with meaning. And that's what all of these other directors out here can't do. They flood the thing with Easter eggs with no relevance and significance to anything. Zack Snyder is saying something with every single Easter egg he's put in there to tell you more, to help you bring out more in your movie. Got it? Okay. So I don't want to hear nothing about Suicide Squad's reference to Watchmen and what was the other one? Shazam's reference to Watchmen. That's cool, well and good, but if it doesn't have any context to it, I don't give a damn about it. I don't care if Marvel has references to comic books and stuff and lines even. That's all curiosity if it doesn't have a significance to it. Let's keep it moving. Let me see what you guys are saying in the comment section first. DJ Lost and Found said, this is also a lesson to be careful of the thoughts and expressions we share on social media. Yeah. Everybody knows that. But this you can't undo your past. Yeah. But at the same time, let me just say, people grow and people make mistakes. And sometimes people can make mistakes. And in spite of that, everybody got skeletons in their closet. So what are you telling me? You telling me now, oh, well, you must never have skeletons in your closet? Or don't let nobody see them? I mean, come on, man. Everybody got skeletons in their closet. So that, yes, you have to be careful about your thoughts and expressions on social media, but people mess up. People make mistakes. Okay? That's part of growing up. And so at the end of the day, if you made a mistake and instead of trying to cover it up, you acknowledge your mistakes and you take responsibility for your mistakes, then I'm okay with that. It's about growing. But at the end of the day, talking about, oh, make sure you don't say this on social media. So you may say it on social media, but you think it in your head. You're still a fucking hypocrite. And especially if you think it to this day. No disrespect to you, DJ Lost and Found, but I'm tired of hearing people talk about, oh, you shouldn't make that mistake on social media. Oh, you shouldn't make this mistake on social media. Okay, fine. Don't make the mistake on social media. All right? But just make sure not only to not make the mistake, but try to replace that with something positive and good. Because I'm tired of this fucking hypocrisy out here. That's why I'm cursing so much. Oh, don't make that mistake. Don't get caught. Don't get caught. Fuck you. You see these people, they look like they're nice people, but they're not nice people. Because it's all about, oh, make sure that you don't get caught. Make sure you don't get seen. It could affect you later on. That's not the way to go. The way to go is to walk in the right way from the get-go. Try to pursue what's right. If you make a mistake, so be it. But try to pursue what's good. It's not enough to say, don't do this. It's not enough. So you can fit into society and look good and politically correct. What happens when tomorrow your statement, which is actually right, you're vilified for because the politics change? How can you not make a mistake then? Fuck that. Fuck it. I'm not playing political games. And James Gunn does not need to be penalized for something he's already apologized for, and he really is genuinely sorry for, and he's shown to be a change as an individual. Of course, you don't give munition to wicked people, but wicked people will find munition from you anyway, and they'll falsely accuse you anyway. Enough with the bullshit. They crucified Jesus. What are you gonna say? Oh, Jesus needed to be careful that he didn't say he was the Son of God. Fuck that. Let's stop with the bullshit. Sorry about that, DJ Lost and Found, but I really feel these things because it's bullshit. It's bullshit. People try to find dirt on other people because they have an agenda. You want to bury somebody. You want to assassinate their character. You want to assassinate them. Of course, you can do that to anybody, even the innocent. You can assassinate somebody. All you got to do is speak loud enough. Hillary Clinton was assassinated. Fuck that. I don't want to hear it. Damian Anton Vincent, be careful what your thoughts and expressions we share on social media. I say fuck that. We're supposed to be careful what we say and do every day, not just on social media, how we express ourselves. Somebody, if they don't like me, they can use this video against me, and they can actually twist what I said. But I don't care, because fuck them. Fuck them. I want you to understand, I ain't into no nasty-minded person. I'm not into it. Something got to change. And it's us. Damian Anton Vincent, good morning, everyone. I took a day off today. All right, man. Enjoy your vacation, man, Damian Anton Vincent. We have to change from inside. No set of window dressing is going to help anybody. We have to change from inside. Fuck all that other bullshit. And I don't like cursing. I don't like cursing and swearing. But I want you guys to understand how strong my point is on these things. I don't believe in cursing either. Expletives are not good. And I mess up all the time. But my point being, we got to change from inside ourselves. This is not a change where you patch up and you window dress. You can't do that. Because just like how I'm shooting all these expletives, that's what we actually doing. We fucking up more. We're messing up more, trying to clean window dressing, trying to create an image for ourselves. An image that easily can be eroded and destroyed, given somebody decides to destroy it. And that's what Zack Snyder was. That's what Zack Snyder's trying to say. It doesn't matter what people think about you. BVS. They were saying all kinds of mean things about Superman. His motivation had to come from inside, not from outside, not from how people saw him and thought about him. Yes, he cared about that too. because that's what will help them to improve and to be better. But it has to come from within you. You have to have that desire and not some devious, nasty motivation to trick people into believing you are what you're not. A genuine something. Anyway, Dave Ethan. Oh, I think most of us Americans are aware of Trump is really doing. Yeah, I know, my bro. I know. It's just one of the weirdest things, man. It's just weirdest things where, you know, the democracy is so wired that to go through the due process to deal with this guy, and I say never kill this guy. Don't kill him. Don't try. This is democracy's on trial right now. American democracy is on trial, and let's see if the process can survive that. Let's see if it can do it with due process, the right way, you know, the fair way, deal with this situation. And so, obviously, Dave Ethan, we don't want nobody assassinating this dude. I know some of the actors and stuff are talking about kill this guy, assassinate him, shoot him. I understand where they're coming from because they know that's what he's going to do them. That's what he's going to do us. He doesn't follow those ethics and morals. He has no mores. He gets guided by it. And so this guy is a terror, but we have to show as people that there's due process. And as much as I've used a lot of expletives, which is not right, guys, don't use expletives. It's not the way to go. And I've been very violent in what I'm saying. Vehement and violent, which is not good either. I just want to make it abundantly clear to you guys how much you know, we have to as people, and you know, we will be hypocritical at times, but we have to as people aspire, man, aspire to be better, man, to be better daily. That's, you got to understand why I am so passionate about this topic, right? You'll notice the consistency in what I'm talking about. You know, DJ Lawson Fowler says, I think the election of Trump has revealed the true character of America. Nothing new. The blinders have been removed. I think it's revealed part of the true character of America. I think America is a lot more complicated than that. I think America is, I think it's a beautiful place. I'm not going to lie to you. You know, the United States of America is a very interesting place where you have a spectrum of people and their belief systems. I think some people who supported Donald Trump, you know, were tired of the bullshit in the way how the political system was going, and that they couldn't see any results, and so they voted for him. I think some other people, he got their attention. He finally recognized them. They were the forgotten people in the United States of America. Nobody looked to them. Nobody remembered their towns. While everywhere else in America was doing well, they were suffering. And so these people felt like they were heard, and so they voted for him. So I'm not saying that every single person who voted for Donald Trump was a despicable human being or anything like that. You know, some people voted on partisan lines, trying to rationalize his election, you know, because he was a Republican. Some people voted for different reasons. But I do think now that people have gotten to see what he's about and everything, and the entire United States of America has gotten to see how treasonous and traitor-like he is, they're going to deal differently. I truly believe that. And it's very important that I do agree with you, DJ Lawson, found that racism and classism and some other ugly things, which are not exclusive to the United States of America, it's actually it's found in almost every society in the world, is something that is now also being challenged. Sexism, racism, you know, this stuff is now at the forefront, and really there's a big war on both going on right now. And it's a fantastic thing to watch. I tell you, I'm privileged to be in this time, because this is a time of change, and you can see the pendulum swinging one direction, then it swings back the next direction, then it swings one direction, then it swings back. You can tell there's a battle going on with respect to these things. And you know, there was a time when I said, I was not a proponent of, for instance, transgender. What I mean by transgender, people who, I have to be very specific about what I'm talking about. People who change their gender, and they change it particularly because they grew up with a particular physiology that just was not them, that their identity was not in their physical form. Their identity was actually rooted in the opposite gender. And so that is why I empathize with people who change it. You know, Lily was it Lana or Lenny? I think it's Lana. Lana Wachowski. I can tell you for a fact that Lana was never a guy. You could tell Lana was never a guy. You just look at him. I think his name was Andy Wachowski. Andy wasn't Andy. Andy was Lana. Andy was Lana. And you saw all the signs. You just go back and watch it, Andy, and you can see he was Lana. And he was never comfortable. You could see he was not a comfortable person. And so there's a, you see, and I know some people out there. I personally know some people out there who they try to be positive. They suffer with depression. You know, they dress up like women. They never felt comfortable being a guy. They're single people. They don't date anyone. And it's really sad. It's really sad. That's not an existence to have. And so if they can get a gender change, if they can get a sex change, I'm happy for them. I really feel for those people. So I changed my view on transgender people, at least the ones who have a sex change. I changed my view on them when I realized that there really are people who are biologically screwed up. And that's fucked up. When you're born, you're really a guy, but you have no male genitalia and you have breasts. Or you're really a girl, but you're born with, a wiener, and you're locked in this body in this form that you don't particularly like. That's a nightmare. Okay. So I really respect those people a lot. And usually they're people who come from a religious background. And so they have a hard time existing. I know a couple of them, and they have it hard. Their lives are hard. Their lives are hard. It's a hard way to live, So I feel for those people. I really wish that they could get their wish and get a sex change so that they can be what they are supposed to be and move on with life. And we have the science is there to do that now, and that's a blessing. So that's the aspect of transgenderism that I really and these people, they're called gay or they're called homosexuals or lesbians, but they're not really lesbians. They're not really homosexuals. I mean, they may engage in homosexual practices, which is dumb, but they're not really lesbians and they're not really homos. They're actually just people who are really supposed to be another gender. That's all. And that's tough. It's tough because that's part of your identity, and you literally conceal that, suppress that. That's a hard life to live, folks. That's a hard life to live. So when Bruce Jenner came out and became Caitlyn Jenner, a lot of people were like, that's courageous and stuff. But the truth is, this guy spent the majority of this lady spent the majority of her life as a guy, as a guy's guy at that. That must be a nightmare, just to cover for being a woman. And that's tough, folks. That is tough. So, and just because, God said, don't be a homo, it could be tough. It could be tough. So that's why I feel for these people. You know what I mean? That's tough, man. And empathy. I tell you guys again, empathy and some sympathy for people is always awesome. To be able to see it from another side is an awesome thing. Anyway, I'm going on and on and on here. Let's see what you guys have to say. Jeffrey Daggs. That's what makes Zack Snyder so unique to me. He puts reference in his films actually have meaning. There's meaning behind everything, not just for namesake. Exactly, Jeffrey Daggs. And Zack, to me, this is going to sound ironic to some people, but Zack to me seems like a very compassionate kind of person, like a very extremely caring kind of person. That's the kind of guy I think Zack Snyder is. Like, he has a heart for people, and it comes out in his movies. His movies are hard-hitting. They're not movies you really necessarily want to see in terms of content. They're very hard-hitting. I got slapped a couple of times with Batman v Superman, and Watchmen is a hard pill to swallow about ourselves. Okay, he gives you the ugly truths about ourselves, and Batman v Superman gave us the ugly truth about ourselves, but he didn't leave us with no answer. Unlike Watchmen, where it's kind of nihilistic in the sense that they have to lie to basically get mankind to get together and work together, and that kind of holds off the earth from being destroyed. So Ozymandias achieves what he was looking for, which is world peace, which he admired Alexander the Great for doing. and he achieved his objective. But it was based on a lie, right? Now, with Batman v Superman, it's based on the truth, and that the lie gets exposed, and that people were actually believing a lie. I found that, again, a flip that Zack Snyder does, and these are the things that I love about his directing. Again, I don't know him personally as a person, but I gotta believe that there's an inkling, a shred of humanity in this guy, because he got that heart in his movies. They're bitter to swallow. Okay, I'm not gonna lie to you. They don't hit. The Man of Steel and Batman v Superman does not ignore it. By no means ignores the reality we're in. Okay, it literally allows us to see what kind of world we are in for what it is. Like, he's very, very obvious about that. The good and the bad of our world. He treats it like I said, he treats it like an actual movie, like an actual film, like not a comic book movie, but like an actual film. He treats it like this. He treats it like movies like this. He treats it like give me some other movies that are, he even treats it like a documentary. Man of Steel, he kind of treats like a documentary even. It's a part documentary, part real. And to me, that is beautiful. That is beautiful. Spider-Man Homecoming was really cool because it kind of dealt with everything through the eyes of social media, and so anyway, let me go back to what I was doing. Hold on a second. Let me just make sure. I don't know where I am, if you guys can see the screen or not. Okay, I am in screen share. Okay. So let me go back to what I was saying. So yes, so you see the opposite here. That a sincere individual is not drunken by power. Superman always had power. He only fully used it to its maximum. And when he used his power to the maximum, remember when he first started testing his limits and he went to the maximum, he did not use it to hurt anyone. When Superman went full out with his powers and started to really use them, he was using them to push his limits for his potential. That's why I love Superman. Zack Snyder was able to bring out, Superman 1978 was fantastic because he was saving people, and you could see the length and breadth and depth of his power, and he could turn back time by spinning the world backwards and stuff like that. It was well and good. It's the first time we've seen a glorious superhero, and the superhero was doing good and helping people and saving people and stuff. That was fantastic. But Zack Snyder articulates what that means, and he adds depth to it. What do I mean by this? Superman in Man of Steel tests his limits, and as he's testing his limits, he's going at his maximum, and you're seeing the full breadth and width of his powers. He lets us take the ride with him, and he explores the world. He's going to the highest mountains. He's going to the African plains. He's going to the seas, across the 7 seas, right? And it's beautiful to take that journey with him, through the Grand Canyon, because he's exploring the beauty of nature. Whereas when we see Superman in Superman 1978, and he's flying and he's going all around the world, or you see him at the end of it flying away, and he's flying over the earth, and he's showing that he's this protector of earth, and you love that. Here we see Superman in harmony with the earth. He's not destroying the earth, but he's working in harmony with it. You see? And so Zach gives us this extra twist to a Superman 1978. Then he comes back with another twist in Superman 1978, because he's showing that Superman uses his powers to push himself, to excel himself. And by excelling himself, he excels others. This is a nuance that Superman 1978 never talked to us about. That self-love and self-growth is about doing good. And by doing good, we actually know more about ourselves. And when we care about others more, we can care about ourselves more, because others are an extension of ourselves. And to be able to know ourselves, we must be able to know others. It's a beautiful, it's something that Christianity teaches us. Others first, me last. Me last because me best. So me last. Not me first. Me first for that makes, okay. Okay. So the way how it goes in Christianity is this. God first, then others, then me. Okay? I'm last. Now, we say God first, just to keep our focus there. But really, that's our energy based, right? That's how we fuel. Good first. Good first. That's what it is. Good things first, right? Then others, which is still good things first. And then when we serve others and when we live, we extend ourselves. We go further. We get happier. We really treat ourselves well because we're treating others well. Our life has meaning. It has purpose. And so me last is actually the best thing. Now, it's counterintuitive because self-preservation tells us me first, right? But if you've ever had a family and you really love your family, you will sacrifice your life for theirs. And that's the way to understand it. Because when love grows beyond your family to other people, even to strangers you don't even know, and you're willing to give your life in goodness for that stranger, now you've grown. And you are you treated yourself right. And you're beyond what you used to be. So that's why it's not me first, but it's actually me last. What? We save the best for last, don't we? All right, guys, let me keep it moving. I know you guys like these concepts. They're back for fronted. In Watchmen, we saw the burial of the comedian. Again, the comedian was the central focus of the entire movie. It's all about a joke. In fact, the icon for Watchmen is about the joke, right? The running joke is this. The running joke is this. The running joke is we fight and we squabble and we try to get to be the captain of the mountain for the mountain to crash and there be nothing. As Jarrell was saying to General Zod, which is basically in keeping with the line of that Captain of the Mountain thing, the Watchmen theme. He says, when General Zod says, you know, to cleanse Krypton of these degenerate lines that brought us to the state. And then Jarrell says to him, but then you'll be the leader of nothing. Don't you understand that? Krypton's going to die, dummy. You're going to be the leader of nothing. What are you doing? What are you doing? And it's the same thing. The world was heading towards a cataclysmic end. The comedian understood this. He understood that all of us would be annihilated. And he could see it happening, right? And that's why he said, all of this that's happening, it doesn't matter if you're a good person or a bad person. It doesn't matter. It's all a big joke. Your existence is a joke because in the end, it won't matter. So that's the nihilism, okay? That's the nihilism of Watchmen. However, Ozymandias said he wanted to do the great act. He remembered Alexander the Great. He wanted to do a great act for mankind. He wants to save mankind. And how did he delay it? He delayed it by setting up Mr. Manhattan to look like the villain. So his elaborate plan was to make Mr. Manhattan look like a villain, a threat to both America and the world. And by doing so, he, like Lex Luthor, how he blew up the Capitol building to make Superman look bad. Well, Ozymandias made this great nuclear attack against each other happen in America, and saying that Dr. Manhattan was behind that. And by Dr. Manhattan looking like the villain, he was able to bring the Earth together, right? So, and then the big joke was that he was able to use man's fear of being conquered and man's desire to conquer to make Dr. Manhattan the villain. So he manipulated mankind because it's so predictable. Mankind's like, ah, no, he's the biggest threat to all of us. And so they come together. Enemies come together. And it's ironical and it's funny, right? So that's the big joke he had. And then Night Owl turned around and looked at Ozymandias and he said, no, that's not the big joke. The big joke is that you're such a smart guy. And yet, at the end of the day, all you could resort to is a lie to get humankind to turn on itself. And you had to compromise all the values that you say you want for saving mankind and call it collateral damage so that mankind could only on a lie come together. And guess what, Ozymandias? At the end of the day, you still ain't saved the world. All you did was delay it because you based your stuff on a lie. He said, the joke's on you. And he walks away. All right. And so it's a very bitter story. But at the end of the day, Night Owl points out that you may have had noble desires, but the process you went through to get to those noble desires, just like the Ku Klux Klan, just like Adolf Hitler, they had noble desires initially, but what you do to get there is not noble. Therefore, that noble plan doesn't mean squat, and it's ineffective. That's what they basically were saying. Now, back to Watchmen. So here is the death of the comedian, and you can see they're giving him a soldier's burial because, of course, he went to war for the United States and he worked for them and stuff. Even though he was a traitor to the United States and killing JFK, again, a shout out to the mafia, the Ku Klux Klan, you know, the detractive elements in American society. You know, the NRA and the gun rights places and stuff, who are not really, the NRA was put in place again to sort of protect rights and liberties and freedoms, and now they have overstepped their boundaries, right? And they are now allowing people to kill people, and they're not doing anything about it. They have taken no steps to allow these things to stop happening, right? They have proposed nothing. They're not pushing forward anything, or they have proposed some stuff, but again, they're not willing to actually deal with their product and make your product more safe and to make things more accountable. They're not into that. And so they are also part of the problem. But anyway, back to Watchmen. So Watchmen is about this burial. You see the state burial for the soldier, which is, in this case, the comedian. And it's interesting, in Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, the irony is that they're burying an empty casket, and they're doing everything like if Superman was a soldier, when Superman was not a soldier. The comedian was a soldier. That's the irony of the situation. Mankind still misunderstands Superman. And the other thing is, they patriotically, of course, bury him, but Superman's not in that casket, whereas the comedian is in the casket. Now, that's a very important thing to understand. When you are an agent of the state doing its bidding, okay, you can be compromised. Let me say that again. When you are an agent of a state doing its business bidding as a patriot, you can be compromised. Superman was not in that casket, symbolizing that he was not compromised, that he truly represented American values without being an agent of the American state. Let me say it again so you guys can understand what I'm saying, because patriotism is what Zack Snyder's speaking to by juxtaposing these two scenes. All right, so follow me here because it's pretty deep. I said, as an agent of the state, you can be. I didn't say you have to be. You can be compromised. There are men with integrity who have not been compromised as agents of the state, and there are a good number of them, but you can be. And therefore, through that, you can abuse your rights, freedoms, and powers. Must have men of moral integrity and moral fabric. You have to be very strong morally not to succumb to those things. Because within each section of governance, there are elements which will try to compromise you, and they are powerful and they are prevalent. And each of these little sections have their own politics going on. Even in education, even in universities, there's politics going on. Where there's people, there's politics. And the politics is not necessarily clean. Usually, most times, it is not. It's not above board. Okay, it's usually dirty. So anyway, the interesting thing about that is this. Whereas the comedian takes it upon himself to make decisions for people, He is the blunt tool. He's the blunt force tool. He is the tool of the state. And he relishes in the fact that he's a tool of the state. And he takes advantage of it and all its perks and its immunities. Right? So when you watch him, he's always committing an atrocity. Initially, early on in his virginity days as a superhero, he did pure, clean things. And he captured criminals, and he was an ambler. Later on, he became bitter and resentful and dark. And he reminds us a bit of what Batman was becoming in Batman v Superman. You can see semblances of the comedian in Batman there. He's an agent of the state that's become compromised, and he doesn't care anymore because he thinks the outcome, he see the outcome, and the outcome is something dire and dark and gloomy. And so he feels all hope is gone. And as a result of that, he's not doing things because they are good anymore. He was doing them because he thought that they would get a particular outcome. And even when all the outcomes and the successes and victories they had, even with all of those things, the comedian still sees the inevitable outcome. So he realizes no matter what you do, this outcome is going to happen. And as a result of that, he becomes discouraged and despondent, and he resorts to bitterness. And in his bitterness, he makes jokes. Does that sound familiar? Does that sound familiar to our times? I will assassinate you, and while I'm doing it, it's a big fat joke. Does that sound familiar? So the comedian is the result of hopelessness and nihilism at its best. However, Superman is contrasted to that in Batman v Superman. He's actually the diametric opposite. And Zack Snyder pushes that irony to its fullest in Batman v Superman. In fact, what's interesting about Batman v Superman is that Superman is not an agent of the system. However, Superman is someone who will work along with mankind, and he will work along and partner the system where he thinks morally and ethically it is good, fair, honest, and just. He is willing to become a servant of mankind and not a lord over them. The comedian was a lord over mankind. He did the things what he thought was in their best interest. He is the diametric opposite of Superman, who is a servant of mankind. While he says, you will never control me. He has his own mind. He makes his own decisions. At the same time, in the best interest of mankind and what they want, he will do. And he will step up to the plate, even hesitantly if he has to protect them. He'll also listen to them, and he will also do whatever they tell him to do within the boundaries of moral ethics. If it will protect mankind and serve mankind, and it does in best interest, he does not micromanage mankind, but if it's going to protect and serve mankind, he will do it. So when General Swanwick rendered him up to General Zod, he said, okay, I'll do it. I'll surrender. When the Senator Finch said, Superman, come to the Senate and listen to these people's accusations against you, he came. Because he's not above mankind. He is a helper of mankind in spite of all his power. And so it was fitting that Zack Snyder would not bury him as an agent of the state, which is the best mankind could do. Instead, he buried him in his own little coffin, a brown one, like the earth, simple, almost like a Puritan wedding, a Puritan funeral, sorry, with an old Scottish guy playing a Scottish horn. It's going in way, almost like a Scottish rite, you know, the Freemasons, the Scottish Freemasons. Almost felt like Little House on the Prairie, small town, small country. And Zack Snyder's speaking back to that small town, small country person, you know, the white America that was on the prairies. The Puritans coming with their Puritan religion, their Puritan values, who were targeted by even the Native Americans. Tried to defend themselves. My point is, and if you go to certain parts of the United States of America right now, the Quakers, I think they are called, They're still out there in their little, their little horse and buggy carriages. You can still see it to this day. They preserved it. And my point anyway is this, that Superman was pure. There's something nice. That's why I like Middle America. There's something nice and pure and really country about Middle America. And you get to know those people, whether you're black or whoever you are, they have a certain hospitality to them and kindness to them. And they really have heart. Once you can get past race. So if they can get past race, get past you and see you as a person. I've met personally some people up in the Northwest who are the most awesome people I've ever met. And they were white country folk. Oh, they're the sweetest people. And I'm a black man. They welcomed me in because I was this other guy's friend. And we were eating pork chops and, oh my God, steak. And I was chilling out with him, was talking music, all kinds of crazy stuff. You would never believe that would happen. But that's just the way it is. I was treated better than I was treated in the university itself by some other folk who considered me a monkey. It's just one of the weirdest things in the world, man. The irony of how people are and how different they can be, and how racism sometimes comes from the intelligent, sophisticated people. And the simple country folk would just embrace you like if it's nothing. Like you one of them. It's just the irony. That's why I said you cannot stereotype people in this life. You just never know who is who. Because it's not about so much the color of your skin and race. You have to understand that some people appreciate people and some people don't. It's a people problem. And Superman came from a small town. He was a country boy. And they mocked him for it. Smallville. Hey, hello, Smallville. And it's ironic that Smallville is actually a big village. It's just a few people, couple thousand people. Small little town. Middle America. I know a lot of people in the Middle America can identify with Smallville. Small town. Simple life. And well, simple, but it's kind of complex in the same thing. But the values are there. The Middle American values. That's why people talk about Middle America. You take race out of the equation. And if you're seen as somebody, you're treated as somebody. Everybody treated with respect. Unless, of course, you do something horrendous, then they'll disown you. That's the one thing about, small town people, man. They're very judgmental. You screw up, I mean, in a major way, and you give them a bad name, and all of a sudden they don't, or you play you aloof, and you real hoity-toity and proud, and you want to talk to nobody. Oh, now you see, now the town folk ain't gonna take to you like that. You can't be too proud for people. You can't be stuck up. You know what I mean? Those are two things. Small country folk, they talk about you. And my point being that Superman came from a small town, small country, small town folk. And so he was buried as a small town folk. He was not buried as Superman. And that's a deviation from the comics that Zack Snyder painstakingly took. It was a deliberate move. It was intentional by Zack Snyder. Didn't bury him in a state funeral. No, buried him in a private, small town funeral. It wasn't an agent of the state. You understand? He was a simple guy just trying to do the right thing, just trying to do good. And that's the opposite of Watchmen. DJ Lost and Found says, I think the election of Trump has revealed the true character of America. Okay. Yeah. DJ Lost and Found says, I agree with your statements, bro. No love lost. Let me just make sure this is playing. The election of Trump has revealed the true character of America. Okay. Okay, cool. Just checking. All right, let me show you guys some more. I ain't done. This one's interesting. This one's very interesting. The iconography is very interesting. And again, the situations are slightly different. There's always the nuance, and therefore the meaning shifts. And again, we have inversion, okay? Okay, so in Watchmen, Rorschach ends up being framed. He's framed for the death of Moloch. He realizes this, and the police come storming in. The iconography is amazing how similar this thing is, because Batman is wearing a trench coat, as you can see, like Rorschach. He actually had his whole face covered up, including his eyes, with goggles. And the police that you see, facing Rorschach here, the Special Forces police, are very similar to the Superman soldiers that you see here. So just taking it from an iconography standpoint, visually, there's a lot of similarities. It's almost like Batman is Rorschach here. Never surrender, right? He's like Rorschach in this scene. Now, I'm not saying Batman is Rorschach throughout Batman v Superman. That is not the case. But for this particular scene, for this particular incident, he is Rorschach. All right? Now, the scene ends with an iconography that's very similar as well, where Rorschach is finally pinned down by a number of policemen, and then his mask is taken off. In the case with Batman v Superman, Batman is finally held down by all of the guards, the Superman guards, and then a parademon knocks him out. And then his mask is taken off by Superman. But there is a lot being said between these parallels, in my opinion, that I would like to extract for you. Now, in the case of Rorschach, he's set up by a much more powerful figure, a shadow figure, which he cannot see, right? And we learn out it's Ozymandias who did that to frame it for the death of Moloch. In the case of Batman v Superman, Batman is also set up. He's framed and deceived by the guy who was supposed to bring the kryptonite to him. But overall, he's being framed and set up by not Superman, but by Steppenwolf, I'm assuming, Darkseid's force. Now, in both situations, the protagonist, which is Rorschach or Batman, they fight their way through. They fight multiple officers. They fight their way through. Batman had his support people, who I think is the Sons of Batman, and a lot of them were killed. And it was when the Sons of Batman started to be killed that Batman really went berserk, right? Whereas Rorschach, he had been set up and framed. He realized that, and then he got a very simple utensil, a bug spray, and then he used a match to flame it up and to keep the police at bay. All right. Now, what are the differences? Okay. I'm going to go to the other scene in a minute, but this particular scene, the differences here is that in this case, Rorschach here, while he's working alone and he's independent of the state investigation with the police, Rorschach is going up against the police, all right? And he's fighting the police. He's been framed, but he's fighting the police. He's beating up the police. He's hurting the police. And the police is doing their duty. They're doing what they're supposed to do. They are misguided. They are tricked into doing it, but they're doing it. In other words, the police are not villainous in any way, shape, or form. And Rorschach himself is not villainous, but he is extreme. He is using brute force to get by them. All right. Now the police knew that they had to go up with brute force against Rorschach because this guy is he's crazy, right? And so is Batman. Batman is crazy. Rorschach is crazy. So it kind of equals out. But the point is, at the end of the day, Rorschach uses extreme force to take down the police officers. Then he breaks through a window and he again tries to take down the police officers to get away from them, but they arrest him. They don't kill him. They arrest him, and then they take off his mask. Rorschach is a guy who goes for justice, as does Batman. Justice is everything for Rorschach. But Rorschach is a very extreme guy. Rorschach's a guy that killed a man for butchering up a little child, raping her, butchering her up, and then giving the dogs to eat of her body. And Rorschach repeatedly butchered that guy. He should have really left him alive, chopped off his hands, chopped off his feet, and then butchered him. But he just butchered him immediately. He cracked his skull with the butcher knife, busted through his brain, killed him instantaneously, right? And just kept on butchering his head. Rorschach is an extreme dude, period. Okay? So what he was doing to the police officers was very extreme. Okay? He attacked them extremely. Then he tried to get away. And he tried to take out the other officers, and he was arrested. In other words, he was somewhat of an anarchist. Batman in this scene was also an anarchist. He was a rebel. They were fighting a resistance, and he was trying to get Kryptonite to kill Superman. All of these things seem horrible. And remembering Batman was very brutal in Batman v Superman as well. Wasn't killing people, willy-nilly. He didn't intentionally kill somebody like Rorschach was, but he was intending on killing Superman intentionally in the movie. So he and Rorschach share very similar things. Now, there's the important part that discriminates, separates them from each other. Hold on a second. I'll come back. Ooh. Hold on one second. Yeah, I gotta go pay a phone bill. They just called in. I gotta get that phone bill paid. So yes, guys. So what I was saying is, yeah. So, let me just try and wrap this up real quick. Rorschach and Batman. So Rorschach is an anarchist, right? Batman was not. He was very violent and brutal as well, but he was not intentionally committing murders, right? Rorschach was a murderer, right? He commit murders, and he was a very extreme guy. And he was a hero as well. He was considered a hero out there. So these heroes were pretty dark, okay? Now, Rorschach believed in justice, but he believed in justice by any means necessary, kill for kill, etc. Batman didn't believe in that. Now, but anyway, nonetheless, here is Batman here, and the difference here is Batman here has a point behind having to take down Superman and kill Superman here, because right now the state is one which is authoritarian. Superman is a dictator. It is like injustice gods among us, and the world has changed. The world now, the context in this is that the world has changed so that there's now draconian rule by the demonic dark side, okay? And Steppenwolf is down there. And so it used to be. As a result of that, you see Batman trying to fight to liberate the world and to protect it. And the only way is to take down Superman, or at least contain him so that you could, control him. In the end, of course, Batman gets killed, as you saw. And in the end, of course, Rorschach also got killed, but for a different reason. And so this scene here depicts the police rightfully come in to bring Rorschach in for the crime that he's framed for. They don't know he's framed. In the end, they get him and they carry him in. Here, these Superman guards are draconian, and they're actually trying to take down the resistance, and they're able to infiltrate the resistance and through a traitor who betrayed the resistance. And here they are. Batman is fighting them off. Eventually, of course, they're able to capture him, and then we see the evil parademons behind them, and we know, therefore, this is very sinister. So it's not the innocence like the cops here, where Batman is framed. This is not innocent at all. So therefore, Batman has all rights to right now try to kill them and to take them down, right? So that's the difference. There's always this nuance. So Aaron Watchmen, the cops are taking down Rorschach, and in a way, it's kind of poetic justice for him killing other criminals and stuff, even though he's right to think that they were also, the criminals were actually did heinous crimes and therefore they deserve to die. But now that he take the law into his own hands as a vigilante. I take off his mask and he goes mad. Here, Batman, he's taken down by these Superman soldiers and Parademon, and then his mask is taken off as well. But this time, Superman takes off his mask so he can watch him in the eye after Superman incinerated two other rebels, and then he kills Batman. He just rips his heart out, right, of his chest, right? So there's a significant difference between ripping off a mask and ripping out your heart. But the difference, and you know why Superman went for his heart, right? Lois Lane was Superman's heart. He was like, she was my world, and you took her from me. So he just ripped, he just freaking ripped out Batman's heart from his chest. Oh my God. So, in the respect of BVS, Zack Snyder changes the context. Here, this is like the end of the world. Whereas with Watchmen, it's not the end of the world. And the cops end up putting Rorschach in prison. All right. And so the context behind it is Batman is justified to be doing what he's doing. Rorschach, on the other hand, he's just a guy that uses excessive force anyway. He probably wasn't going to be taken in because what? He says, never surrender. And so because of that, he's just going to be violent anyway, right? Because he's not really a good guy. And remember, at this point in time when the police are coming after Rorschach, vigilantes are outlawed from being vigilantes anymore, which is pretty much like our times now. You can't be a vigilante in our times. It's not cool at all. Don't be a vigilante, right? So I found this very interesting. I found this very interesting, just juxtaposing these two iconographies and seeing how this scene here is actually a big Easter egg to this scene, but it has the twist. And the twist, it's all ideologically different, all right? So that's basically what I have for today, guys. in terms of my videos. I hope you guys enjoyed these videos. I try to go pretty deep into things and in our world. And again, it pans into the scripture. If you want me to read the scripture again, it's not a problem. I can read the scripture. But what you're seeing is basically you're seeing a justice. You're seeing the DCEU doing this side of this. So Watchmen was this, and the DCEU, especially the Superman stories like Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, is this. It's the irony of the situation that it's like James Gunn juxtaposed against this guy, you know, Mike Cernovich. It's kind of like, you know, the idea where you have an idealist who is sort of reflecting what our world is, whereas you have the guy that actually is bitter, and he's saying it's a joke, or he's coming from a lens of, you know, proposing that he's serious when in fact it's all a joke to him, and he actually believes the opposite. Whereas the other guy, he actually is making a spoof of the situation, but he believes the opposite of the spoof he's saying genuinely. You know, it's just what it is. So I hope that Falling Down is a movie you go and watch, because basically what I just showed you is kind of in context with Falling Down. It's also in context with scripture, and I must sound like a big hypocrite using scripture, and yet I curse and swear like a drunken sailor. But you got to forgive me. That's just a shortcoming on my part. I'm still a work in progress. But here it says, and I read it again, let the heathen be wakened that come up to the valley of decision. I will judge all the heathen round about. Put the sickle in for harvest. All right. And then it goes on to say, multitudes in the valley of decision. For the day of the Lord is near the valley of decision. All right. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Remember, everything comes down to choice. Let me see what you guys say in the comment section before I go. And there are no more comments in the comment section. Well, that's cool, man. I hope you guys have a great day. I hope you guys are hearing me. To the valley of decision. Okay, yeah, you guys are hearing me. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Have a good day, guys. Bless you all. Keep on shining that light, and just remember, let's think about being vessels of light in this world, in spite of the outcome. That's why I keep on telling you guys about Justice League was a training ground for you guys. That it's not about the outcome. If you're just thinking about doing things because there's going to be a certain result for it, then you will become like the comedian. You will become like Mr. This dude. I forgot what his name is. You'll become like this guy, Michael Douglas. You'll become like this guy, okay? Mike Cernovich. You know what I'm saying? You started just say fuck everything and to hell with everything. And that's not the way to go. It's not about survival. It's about living and having a quality of life that is really good. And if you really truly love yourself, then you will treat others with respect and dignity, and you will love others. That's the only way to really truly love yourself, because you actually grow for it, and you'll actually be happier for it. So I hope that benefits you guys. I hope you have a great day. Blessings to you. I gotta go. Catch you guys later. Peace.